Hello, folks. The first video was setting the context or the framework. I needed to do the previous video before I could do this one. So this is the same chart that we looked at previously, only I have added this finer line. We can see how price is interacting with that line, and so it's reasonable to think that there might be some resistance around this area. But one of my thoughts when I look at this chart is, okay, I could close out my silver positions or take profit on my silver positions at this point. And so now I'm standing there on the sidelines of the market with Benjamins in my hand, US $100 bills. What am I going to do with them? And until there is some better alternative that I can identify, I'd just as soon sit in the metals. And so I can see that I understand, and part of the reason I'm bringing this up is that I'm seeing people talk about I'm taking profits, taking my trading positions off the table, tightening stops, etc. And it makes me think about, time frames, price targets, what is your objective in the precious metals market? Until we have a better something better to do with our wealth, our money, our hard-earned money, I'd just as soon sit in the metals. And so I'm shooting for the big target, not this current minor target. But anyway, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. That was Duvall in Apocalypse Now. Just classic movie scene. And I'll get to the conspiracy theory. Let's focus. This is the timeline again, and I added two data points that weren't in there before. I had forgot to add them. There was a lot of movement in physical metal on the futures exchanges on Friday. And so we had at least 2 million ounces of silver COMEX. And we don't have data directly from the COMEX, but we've got data from third-party sources that took delivery of the metal. And then also on the second, Friday, we have rumors, and these are strictly rumors. I don't have any data to support this, that there was also large movements of physical metal in China on the Shanghai Futures Exchange. And then it didn't occur to me when I was doing this slide that quite likely that same thing on LBMA on Friday, that what I assume is going on is that any physical metal that could be grabbed on Friday got grabbed, which, who cares other than when we fit that into the big picture. So now, not only have we got China clamping down on silver exports, now on the very next day, any physical silver that isn't nailed down gets taken off the shelves. But, again, that's just me speculating. But the point of this video and the fun thing for me, what I wanted to get to today is, so what might this mean to us as silver investors and speculators? And so we need a little bit of background information to set the context. So Venezuela exports that much oil every day to China. Some people claim that it's at a discounted price. I can't speak to that. China imports that much oil every day, so the Venezuelan oil represents 5.8%. A lot of people I see on the web, and they're disparaging Venezuelan crude because it is heavy and it's high in sulfur content, and that's true. Both of those attributes are true of Venezuelan crude. So what? What these people who are knocking Venezuelan crude don't point out is that many of the U.S. refineries were built specifically to process Venezuelan crude. And so, yes, Venezuelan crude is not the first choice. Ideally you'd get light sweet crude. It's the easiest, least expensive oil to refine, but you work with what you got. And so what we've got is a large percentage of the refineries in America configured specifically to process Venezuelan crude. And so let's go take a look at this map. And this map comes from Matt Bracken, his new resource to me just in the last week. I'll include a link to his latest Substack article in the link below, and he's got some good content. And this is the map that comes from Matt. So what he's showing here, this is Gulf of America and Gulf of Mexico. If you're not, if you're behind the times, Texas and Louisiana, obviously. And then this inset map is showing the refineries here along the Texas, Louisiana, and actually we go into what is that? That's all the way into Alabama. That's Georgia, up into Tennessee, Oklahoma. Anyway, a bunch of refineries in this area of the United States, and there's Venezuela. And so from a geographical perspective, this is a good location as a source of crude oil to process in these refineries. And again, a large percentage of these refineries were built specifically to process this crude oil. And so thank you, Matt, for this map. That's good information. And again, I'll include a link to his latest Substack article in the video description below. Silver. So background, silver. China produces about 13% of the world's supply of silver. What can get overlooked, easy to overlook, is, okay, well, you look at that number, 13%, and say, okay, China's not really a big player in the silver market, but that number ignores the amount of silver concentrate and silver doré bars that go to China for refining and processing. And so at least 40% of the world's finished silver comes from China. And in large part, that's because, the West shipped all their dirty industries over to Asia. And of course, at first it was China. And so what we've ended up with after numerous decades, several decades, China's got the lion's share of silver processing in the world. And so at least 40%, I'd go with that number. I've seen numerous references suggesting that China has at least as much as 60 to 65% of the world's processing of finished silver. And so anyway, China's in the catbird seat when it comes to finished silver. And so when we think about either of those numbers in the context of China just stopped exports to the rest of the world, didn't stop them necessarily, but now they require basically they shut out the small players in the market and evidently the mid-sized players as well. they've only left a handful of large refineries, processors, uh, who will be able to export silver from China if they get an export license. That's my understanding of it. Oh, if we look at what is the current state of the COMEX in particular, and we could assume reasonably that the LBMA is probably looks about the same. What is the current state of paper to physical silver? What is that ratio? Because we're aware that there are far more ounces of paper silver sold than physical silver available to actually, if people that bought paper silver made a claim, said, "Hey, give me my silver," it doesn't exist. And so the last time I looked at this number, and it was only in the last 10 days, it was 356. And so I had already typed 356 on this slide before I went and looked. And the current number, it's right there, is 374. So 374 paper ounces of silver sold for every physical ounce of silver that the COMEX, I believe this is specifically focused on the COMEX, 374 ounces of paper silver sold for every physical ounce of silver that they control. 374, folks. If you're not familiar with this resource, it's the usdebtclock.org. A lot of information here. And that's just one of the valuable pieces. There's paper to gold, so 139. So if we look at every physical ounce of gold on the COMEX, they've sold it 139 times. Crazy, crazy world.